So I think what we're trying to figure out is if there's anything that we can do within our domestic sole control to make the auto sector more competitive here, so we can hope to keep some jobs. And so I know that you mentioned on mandates previously regarding the pause, they were necessary given unprecedented challenges facing the domestic industry. This move provides temporary relief to an industry reeling from Trump's tariffs. I appreciate that you appreciate the temporary relief. I would argue that a permanent relief would do even more for some of the certainty that's required. And Mr. Volpe, I know that you've classified to the Toronto Star the mandate, you classified them as economic punishment, and we couldn't agree more. And we've heard this at length, Mr. Chair, from a number of witnesses about the EV mandates, and I really do believe they're like a noose hanging over the auto sector's head, and surely we can do something to help support them right now. And so I will move the following motion, Mr. Chair. Given that the federal Liberal electric vehicle mandate is currently paused but not repealed and may be reinstated following the government's ongoing review, given that the mandate reduces consumer choice and affordability with electric vehicles costing around $15,000 more than comparable gas models and winter range losses of up to 40%, affecting rural and northern drivers, does not reflect consumer demand, as electric vehicles made up only 8.7% of new vehicle sales in early 2025, a 23% drop from the previous year, is out of step with the U.S. market, where no comparable federal sales mandate exists, and automakers are given greater flexibility to meet consumer demand. Upon reinstatement, would require automakers to meet strict quotas, 60% zero-emission sales by 2030 and 100% by 2035, or face penalties of up to $20,000 per vehicle. Would once again channel millions in compliance payments to foreign companies like Tesla, instead of supporting Canadian automakers and jobs, and has been criticized by industry experts, including Hugh Williams of the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association, who called the EV mandate, quote, a pending disaster, and stated, if you want to help Tesla and not your local car dealer, keep the EV mandate. And Brian Kingston of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, who called it, quote, a direct challenge to our competitiveness as an auto manufacturer jurisdiction, because it is levying punitive costs on companies that do not achieve these arbitrary sales targets. And that the committee report to the House its recommendation that the federal Liberal electric vehicle mandate be abolished. Mr. Chair, we feel quite strongly about this, and I look forward to the discussion.
So I'm just seeking some clarity from you, Madame Dancho. Are you moving notice, or you are moving the motion?
I'm moving the motion.
You're moving the motion. Okay. So, colleagues, I'm noting I've got 3 over here that'd like to speak. I'd like to make a recommendation to the committee, should colleagues not accept that recommendation, that's fine. We'll abide by the standing orders. We have 3 witnesses with us. We have about 12 to 15 minutes worth of testimony left. If we get into a long, drawn-out discussion, or even a discussion of any kind on this motion, that is going to either prevent us from speaking to the witnesses further, or it is going to mean that the witnesses have to sit here, wait, listen to us deal with committee-related business that was not the reason that they were brought here today. So here's what I would like to recommend, that we allow for the line of questioning to continue, and that we agree with unanimous consent that we will honor the moving of Madame Dancho's motion, which we will engage on once we're finished our line of questioning, so that the witnesses that have availed themselves to us today can make the full use of their expertise known to us. And then following the conclusion of that, we will resume debate on this motion. In order for us to do that, I'm going to need unanimous consent from the membership. Yes, Madame Dancho.
How long will we have to discuss it?
We have to discuss it as long as there is to discuss it. So
there's no cutoff from the...
No cutoff whatsoever. All I'm suggesting is that instead of having what could be a 10, 15, 20, 60-minute long discussion with witnesses still here, let's finish the predetermined allotted amount of time out of respect to them and the members that still have time remaining, and then we agree as a committee that we will resume to the motion that you've moved.
I believe we had hands up here, so we may have a speaking order.
I will establish this. I will honor the speaking order that was attempted to be established here, which I have as Mr. Falk, Ms. Borelli, Mr. Guglielmin. I will resume that speaking order and commence it once we finish the pre-allotted time we've set aside for witnesses. So I'm just looking for consent from the committee. Simply put, I don't want the witnesses to have to wait around while we have a discussion about this because they've made themselves available. Certainly, Mr. Volpe, Mr. DiCaro, and Ms. Payne have a lot on their plate, a lot of people to talk to, and I don't want to hold them up any further. Okay, then in that case, Madame Dancho, we will return to your motion upon the conclusion of questioning. Your time has expired.
Yes.
Mr. Bardisi. Colleagues, we are now going to, as committed, get into the motion that was moved by Madame Dancho earlier in the hour. I had as a speaking list Mr. Falk, followed by Ms. Borelli, followed by Mr. Guglielmin, followed by Mr. Ste-Marie, followed by Madame O'Rourke. Mr. Falk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my colleague, Ms. Dancho, for putting forward this motion, and I think she's clearly given the rationale as to why this motion should be adopted by this committee. And I just want to, for those people watching committee, reiterate what the ask is without rereading the entire motion. And the ask is very simple, that the committee report to the House, that being the House of Commons, that it and is recommendation that the federal liberal electric vehicle mandate be abolished. And, you know, if we go back in time a little bit to 2021, when Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government first announced their plan for an EV mandate, is when things actually began to happen. And the Liberal government obviously didn't do their homework properly and didn't realize what the impact of an electric vehicle mandate would do to the auto industry here in Canada. And I think today we're seeing the fallout of that. Multiple witnesses at committee have told us that a substantial impact on the decision that Stellantis will have made in shutting the Brampton plant and moving production of the Jeep Compass to Illinois was the fact that there was an EV mandate here. And instead of giving Elon Musk billions of dollars in carbon tax offset credits, and for those that follow the industry a little bit, last quarter, Tesla received $700 million or $600 million in carbon tax credits from other automakers, and the quarter that we just came through, or prior to that, was $700 million. That's over $2 billion a year the industry is giving to Tesla. That's leaving Canada and padding the pockets of Elon Musk. I think the necessity of this motion is also brought on by the fact that the Prime Minister Carney, his ministers, Minister Joly, Minister Champagne, Minister LeBlanc, have failed to negotiate tariff relief with the United States government. They've failed to negotiate, and every time that they actually seem to communicate with the Americans, things seem to get worse here in Canada. You know, when they tried to implement a counter tariff, that lasted about 48 hours. When they tried to bring in a tax on the tech giants, that lasted less than 24 hours. What we see over and over again is Prime Minister Carney backing down to President Trump. And every time it seems to cost us more money. But after the last visit that Mr. Carney had with President Trump, we see that he came back having made a $500 billion investment commitment into the United States, knowing that $60 billion of capital had already fled our company into foreign markets. And then he promised Donald Trump a $500 billion or $500 billion investment in the United States coming from Canada. He should be worried about Canadian investment, not investing in the United States. And yesterday we learned that the only winner from this last visit was Brookfield, $80 billion contract. 2 weeks after our Prime Minister visits with President Trump. Wow, that's a big thank you to Canadians and to Canadian auto workers. Conservatives stand strongly in the corner of the Canadian auto workers, with the workers of Stellantis that were anticipating that they would have a plant reopening, that they would be producing the Jeep Compass. For years and years, they produced the hallmark muscle cars of the Stellantis brand, the Dodge Charger, the Dodge Challenger, excellent products, and the workers were extremely proud. And while we sat here in committee listening to testimony, I looked up on Google and I Googled a picture of the employees standing beside the last Dodge Challenger that was made in the Brampton plant, which was a Dodge Challenger Demon 170 black, total black car. And the workers stood around there and they took pictures and they applauded and they celebrated the workmanship of that plant in producing a phenomenal muscle car. And these were proud auto workers, proud of the work they had done, proud of the product they had produced, and they should be. And now they're faced with this. And why are they faced with a robocall advising them that they wouldn't have work? Because this Liberal government failed to deal with the trade situation that we have with the United States. They failed to get any elimination of the tariffs. They failed to get any concessions. This wasn't a decision that was made last month by Stellantis. This was a decision, as we heard from President Hein, from Stellantis. We heard from him that he had been in discussions with both Unifor and the Liberal government the last 9 months. This wasn't a decision that was made overnight. They had 9 months to come up with a solution, and the Liberal government failed. And now there's 3,000 workers in the Stellantis plant that are looking towards Christmas and wondering how they're going to make that a celebration for their family. This isn't fair to those auto workers. This isn't fair. This Liberal government has hugely failed them, and they need to make things right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Falk. Ms. Borelli, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, I want to be clear right from the start. This motion is not about opposing electric vehicles. Conservatives support innovation, consumer choice, and Canadian-made technology. What we do oppose is the federal Liberal EV mandate, a policy that punishes workers, families, undermines our manufacturing competitiveness, and threatens the livelihoods of thousands of Canadian auto workers, particularly in Windsor, the heart of Canada's automotive industry. We heard it loud and clear from our witnesses. The average electric vehicle costs $15,000 more than a comparable gas-powered vehicle. As Hugh Williams told this committee just days ago, and I quote, "It's a pending disaster." And he's right. This mandate doesn't help the average family. It helps foreign corporations and the ultra-wealthy who can afford a $70,000 car and a home charging station. When the government tells automakers what to build, instead of letting consumers decide what to buy, the result is simple. Fewer cars on lots, fewer choices, and higher prices. That means more families priced out of owning a vehicle altogether. In Windsor, where our local economy was built on auto manufacturing, this mandate represents yet another threat to good-paying union and non-union jobs. Right now, unemployment in Windsor is 10.4%, the highest in the country. We've seen Stellantis move production of the Jeep Compass from Brampton to Illinois, putting 3,000 Canadian jobs at risk. Our parts manufacturers, many of them small and family-owned, are struggling under the uncertainty created by this government's industrial policy. For Windsor, it isn't just about cars. It's about the survival of an entire regional economy that depends on the freedom to build, sell, and export vehicles that Canadians actually want to buy. Ending the federal mandate sends the right signal that we believe in market-driven innovation, not government coercion, that we trust consumers, not bureaucrats, to choose what works best for them. Abolishing this mandate doesn't mean walking away from clean technology. It means replacing ideology with practicality, ensuring the transition to cleaner transportation happens with Canadian workers, not at their expense. So, Mr. Chair, this motion is about standing up for affordability for families, choice for consumers, and jobs for workers, especially in Windsor, Essex, and Brampton. It's about saying yes to innovation, but no to mandates that drive prices up and jobs out. If the government truly stands firmly with its auto workers, prove it by scrapping this failed policy and replacing it with a Made in Canada plan that protects both our environment and our manufacturing heartland. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borelli. Mr. Gugelmin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, we're here at an emergency debate about the auto sector. And we're here because unjustified, unprovoked tariffs are slaughtering our auto industry and, frankly, our broader manufacturing industry. I'm hearing from businesses connected to the auto industry in the supply chain. They're already starting shift reductions. They're cutting hours, they're cutting shifts. And like I've said probably multiple times, and it's definitely worth repeating here at this committee, these aren't just numbers. They're not just statistics. These are people. These are families. That's why we've put this motion before the committee today. And for the record, the motion that we're putting forward to the committee is that this committee would report to the House that we cancel the EV mandate immediately. Now, we've heard from expert witness testimony at this committee. We've had the Canadian Automobile Dealer Association head here, Hugh Williams, who said, and I quote, "It's a pending disaster, the EV mandate." We have had the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association head here, Brian Kingston. Brian Kingston said, "This is the one simple thing that we could do to breathe some life into the automotive industry, and we could do it right now." He also called the EV mandates a direct challenge to our competitiveness. Mr. Volpe, who just testified at this committee this evening, he said EV mandates, they're not even based in reality. A study by the Canadian Journal of Economics found that Prime Minister Carney's EV mandate would kill 38,000 jobs by its 5th year and would likely cause the collapse of Canada's automotive sector. Can you imagine that on top of these unjustified tariffs, that on top of all the issues surrounding the trade policy environment vis-a-vis the United States? So far, we've seen that it doesn't seem like our government is able to get a deal on auto with the Americans. We've heard them signal as much south of the border. So the question would become, why would we have an ideologically driven EV mandate that has no practical benefit to the auto sector? Clearly, the game has changed. Clearly, we're under threat. Clearly, we need to take a common sense approach to this. And it's not just auto industry executives and people connected to the industry who are saying this. Almost 50 mayors across Ontario have called for the EV mandate to be scrapped. Now, Conservatives want to scrap this mandate because it's the right approach, it's the right thing to do. It's based on expert testimony. It's a common sense approach to restore affordability. And more importantly, it's an approach that will protect workers, because that's why we're here. We're here for the auto industry. We're here to protect auto workers. And we stand firmly on the side of auto workers and will continue to advocate to ensure that they have a safe future, that their families can feel assured that the government is doing everything it can to protect their security, their job, and by default, their family. That is why I'd like to end by saying, clearly, based on the witness testimony that we have heard at this committee, we need to scrap this EV mandate immediately. I fully support this motion, and I hope that all members can agree It's time to move forward, end this destructive, disastrous policy for the benefit of all Canadian workers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ste-Marie.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. The mandate is currently suspended. We, as the Bloc Québécois, we spoke against this. For us, the most important crisis that we're faced with is the climate change crisis that is impacting more and more people's lives everywhere. And it requires adaptation measures. And our party's view, my personal view, is that it requires strong political measures right now to fight against climate change. EVs will not fix the climate crisis alone. It takes a whole set of comprehensive measures, but we do support the obligation, the mandate that the government should impose on EV manufacturers or car manufacturers, because otherwise adaptation will be way too slow given the crisis we're facing. So I am not going to support this motion. And once again, to remind members of the committee, it's not suspending or abolishing this mandate. It's about bringing it back. And we need to be pragmatic as well. We have to see what the Americans are doing with President Trump, because there was a strategy implemented by the previous President Biden. So we need to have some capacity to be flexible and adjust, but we also need to be mindful of the climate crisis that is the biggest crisis that is facing us. President Trump is speaking out against environmental measures, but you have the states in the United States who also have a lot of leeway. For instance, California has a partnership with Quebec for the carbon marketplace, and that represents California alone has a bigger economy than that of Canada's. There are other states, for instance, Oregon, who is interested in joining this structure. So if the president does not want to take steps to fight against climate change, it's still possible for states alone to take action. So what I would be asking here at the representative of the government is not to suspend or bring it back, this mandate, in a pragmatic manner. So I will be voting against this motion. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ste-Marie. Mr. Ste-Marie.
Thank you, Chair Carr. So just moments ago, we were sort of galvanized and all together with the auto sector and the auto workers, and that was the purpose of this particular study that we supported. And now we're going to argue about the availability of electric vehicles, which I think is a different conversation and does not serve the purposes of this meeting. And we have not heard from the entire sector. So there is an electric vehicle industry, and we are the industry committee that should hear from more folks. Just to put some facts on the record as well. Electric car sales exceeded 17 million globally in 2024, reaching a sales share of more than 20% globally. Electric car sales in 2025 are expected to exceed 20 million worldwide, to represent more than a quarter of cars sold worldwide. These trends are very clear. Prior to the reduction observed in the first quarter of 2025, zero-emission vehicles continued to increase their share of new vehicles sold in Canada, reaching 15% of total new motor vehicle registrations in 2024. ZEVs were responsible for 60% of the net increase in total vehicle registrations in Canada in 2024 and accounted for 1 in 7 new vehicles sold that year. And depending on the region where you are, that number was as high as 1 in 3 or 1 in 4. There is a clear trend. There is clear demand. Encouraging Toyota Canada, August 2025 sales, right? And you have to remember, we're trying to compare a 10-year technology to a 100-year internal combustion engine technology. But Toyota Canada's August 2025 sales, they were up 14.4% year over year, with 21,848 units sold, helped by strong demand for its electrified vehicles, which represented 49.1% of all units sold. I could go on. What I will add is that no car maker had a 20% target for 2026. Early compliance credits and 2024-25 sales meant an effective compliance target for 2026 was around 14%, and we were already there as a sector. A number of things have disrupted the adoption of electric vehicles in Canada, including the tariffs and the current climate. Even with the headwinds, Q1 2025 EV sales were up over 100% compared to Q1 2023, despite higher interest rates, trade uncertainties, and the abrupt end of purchase incentives. As members of the industry committee, we should want to see all this kind of growth in all our sectors. Legacy automakers sometimes claim that EVAS disproportionately benefits certain automakers, but GM has a higher EV market share than Tesla. So, this is not the focus of this study today, which is serious to people in Brampton, to people in the auto sector, and I think we should give this particular study its due. No notice of motion was provided for this motion today. We do not, as an industry committee, have a thorough understanding of the sector, having heard from 2 witnesses and cherry-picking their responses. There is a serious review underway of EVAS, which has been suspended. That is being done in broad consultation and understanding of the context. It is not productive to presuppose the outcome of that consultation. We know that 2026 requirements are suspended. We do that consultation with full knowledge of the changing context. And in light of that, Mr. Chair, I do now move that the committee now adjourn.
Okay, colleagues. So, as you know, a motion to adjourn is a dilatory motion, meaning that there's no further debate. We have to vote on it immediately. So, I'm looking around the table. Those in favor of adjourning? Yeah, I'm calling the vote. So, those in favor of adjournment? Okay. Those opposed? Okay. The motion to adjourn passes by a count of 5-4. So we've now adjourned debate and we've adjourned the meeting. So that adjourns everything. So meeting adjourned.